are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and
keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, August 19th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the little $ in the chat. We recently qualified for Super Chats, so to get your comment highlighted on the show and I acknowledge it, it really makes the show more interactive between me and you guys, the viewers. That's really what it's all about. So make sure, if you want to help out the show, you could do that. We greatly appreciate it. And also, if you want to do the alternative and go to the link that's on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment, that is gsmcpodcast.net. which is another way to help out the show. But Super Chat is easier because you stay with the video as opposed to going to the link and you end up going to another site and clicking off the video. So we greatly appreciate you guys viewing our shows each and every day. And let's get into what we are going to discuss on the show. So this is kind of a quarterback-themed show for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about Caleb Williams' performance this past weekend. We're also going to talk about the Raiders officially naming Gardner Minshew the starter over AidanO'Connell, so I'll get into that. I'll talk about the Steelers and their offensive struggles over the weekend, and if there's anything really to be concerned about at this point. And in the fourth part of the show, we'll talk about Daniel Jones and the Giants. We'll talk about his performance on Saturday, and then we'll get into actually talking about a kicker. We'll talk about Brandon Aubrey of the Dallas Cowboys tying the all-time record for the longest field goal. And that'll be it for the show. So let's get into the first topic, which is discussing Caleb Williams' performance along with Rome Odunze on Saturday. So, again, it's preseason, but you definitely can see why the Bears took him with the number 1 overall pick. Now, it didn't get off to the best start. He did play. The starters played most of the first half, if not all the first half. But the first several drives, they stalled. They didn't really do anything. And it was funny because I was switching between, because it was airing on NFL Network. So it was on NFL Network. The Giants game was on my local Fox station, and then I also had the Yankees on as well. So I was constantly going back and forth between all three of those games, and of course every time I tried to go back to, or every time I went back to the Bears game to watch Caleb Williams play, the Bengals were always with the ball because the Bears drives were so quick. They really didn't do anything. But it's really that final drive that people are going to remember. And it's not always going to be pretty. And I've said it, and many other people are going to say it, or have said it, that there are going to be some tough times. And Caleb Williams is going to have to overcome those tough times, that adversity. And, again, didn't get off to the best start, but, ended up getting that touchdown drive. The final 2 drives, they scored a couple points. That final drive is what everybody's going to remember because especially one of the plays that set up the touchdown, the 45-yard pass play to Rome Odunze, which, again, you see why they took Caleb Williams. He scrambled out, he threw it down the field, and Rome Odunze made a great catch. And then, of course, the rushing touchdown. Off script, scrambled around, followed his blocker into the end zone for a touchdown. So he didn't have any passing touchdowns. He had a rushing touchdown. And that's what everybody's going to remember, is that last drive. And listen, I think there's definitely a lot to like about Caleb Williams, just from what I saw. And, we just got to see how it goes. They play the Titans week 1. And that's really, his first true test is playing, first strings. And then you go from there. But I think the Bears might have their guy. It's possible. But the thing is, you don't want to get caught up in the moment because, again, it's preseason. But you see, right now, if there are people out there that don't believe in this guy, at least from what we've seen so far in the preseason, we know the talent is there. Now it's really all about bringing that over to the regular season. Because there's been a lot of guys that have a bunch of talent, but it ends up not panning out. And I've said it over and over again that with the Bears and the roster that they have and what they've built around Caleb Williams, I think the Bears are going to have a good season. And if they don't, they end up winning 7 games or 8 games. They finish with a losing record around there. Because I said I think they should win 9 games. Or maybe even 10. And maybe sneak in as a wild card. But if it's one of those things where they struggle early on and they're kind of playing catch up, but they get hot towards the end of the year and they finish the season strong but they miss out on the playoffs, I mean, I don't know if Bears fans are going to want to take that. I think their expectation is let's make the playoffs. There's got to be improvement. Like, the last thing you want to see is, this team just fall flat and win, 6 games or 5 games. I think this team is good enough that they should be able to win at least 9 games, around there. But there's a lot to like. There's definitely a lot to like. But you always gotta put in the back of your mind that it also might not pan out. But I don't know. I'm drinking that Bears Kool-Aid. I'm on that train. And I think this Bears season could be special for them. And they don't play in the AFC. There's 3 wild card spots up for grabs. I think the Bears can definitely be a team that grabs one of them, if it pans out. But you want to keep things in perspective, I get it, and say, look, it's the preseason. Let's see how it translates to the real deal. And I think for the most part, the rookie quarterbacks, they really haven't been bad. They've had their moments, all of them really, in this preseason so far. Bo Nix looks like he's going to be the starter for the Broncos. Drake May looked good on Thursday. Michael Penix, we know he's not going to start right away, but hasn't looked bad. Unfortunately, J.J. McCarthy, we're not going to really see him because he's going to be out for the year. It's they really have not. None of them really have looked bad so far, which is encouraging for the teams that have gotten them. Am I missing anybody? Oh, Jane Daniels as well. I know. I was like, I'm forgetting somebody. Yeah, Jane Daniels hasn't looked bad either. And he's starting week 1. So this could be a really good rookie class. But we got a couple more weeks before, we get to the real deal and see how they play. And I do think for the Bears, going up against the Titans at home, I think that's a good way to get off to a good start. Now, I don't think it's going to be an easy game. I know people are low on the Titans, but I do think that's a game that they can get off to a good start. The Bears, especially being at home. Because then the following week, you're in Houston. And the way the Texans have looked in the preseason, they could be, they're going to be really good. So, now I know the Bears did beat them in the Hall of Fame game, so we do have to factor that in. No, not really. But get off to, win that first game if you're the Bears. Set the tone. But yeah, definitely that last drive, you really saw, like, okay, this kid could be the real deal. But you're going to have those growing pains because they did go their first few drives without doing anything. That's why when I was, flipping back and forth between the games I was watching, I get back to the Bears and they're already off the field. And I'm watching Logan Woodside for the Bengals. I'm like, I want to see Caleb Williams. Like, what's going on? So, that's my thoughts, though. Rome Odunze, I mean, he looks good. The Bears have a really good trio of wide receivers. So, I've said it a bunch of times, I'm really looking forward to watching the receivers and how they are. So, with the quarterback. But that's my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think, though, about Caleb Williams and the Bears from their preseason performance this past week. I'm sure we'll see more of it on the Hard Knocks episode that's coming up tomorrow. But you definitely got to, Bears fans are giddy. So, with that, though, we are going to take our first break of the show. And then when we come back, we will talk about the Raiders. We'll talk about them naming Gardner Minshew the starter. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. Feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to now discuss Gardner Minshew being named the starter for the Raiders. So it was interesting because it didn't seem like a decision was going to happen this week, because there were articles coming out that both quarterbacks between Gardner Minshew and AidanO'Connell no one was really separating themselves to be the starter. Now, these are the preseason stats I have for both quarterbacks up here. But then all of a sudden, the next day after I see those articles, those headlines, they named Gardner Minshew the starter. I see it when ESPN was on, and I see, or NFL Network was on, and I saw at the bottom, Raiders named Gardner Minshew the starter. And Antonio Pierce said to the media, he said, myself, Tom Telesco, and Luke Getsky, the offensive coordinator and the general manager, discussed it this morning, meaning yesterday. A lot of things went into it. It wasn't based off of last night. There's a lot of factors. We feel like Gardner gives us the best opportunity to get off to a fast start. And, I mean, I've said it all along, too. I believe that Minshew should get the opportunity to be the starter. Now, I do remember a couple weeks ago, I forget when it was, but someone did comment, I believe was a Raiders fan in one of my videos, was that AidanO'Connell should get the start, should get the opportunity, because we kind of know what Minshew is at this point. And, and O'Connell's a young guy going into his second year. And I do understand from that perspective. I don't disagree with that. But I do think Minshew is probably the better option. He took over for Anthony Richardson last year and did a really nice job. The Colts really, they had a chance to make the playoffs. And, they just missed out on it. If a player or two goes their way, maybe we're having a different conversation. The Colts make the playoffs, the Texans don't. Actually, well, but yeah, it's because I don't know if the Texans, if they would have lost, they still would have made it because they would have had the. Actually, no, I don't know. Would they have had the tiebreaker over the Jaguars? I don't remember. This was I was going back to last year. But anyways, if the Colts would have won, they would have made the playoffs. But, that didn't happen. And look, we kind of do know what Minshew is at this point. He's a guy that could come in and win games. I don't think he's a franchise quarterback. I think he's one of the better backup quarterbacks in the NFL that can start for you. But he's not the franchise guy. Now, I mean, if he goes out there and he throws, 30 touchdown passes to 7 interceptions, well, and, throws for 4,000 yards, okay, then maybe I'm wrong. But I think this is temporary. And that maybe they go after a quarterback because it's possible Dak Prescott could be available. Although, in recent days, it seems like we're moving towards them getting a deal done with him, possibly. But who knows? If Dak's available, teams that need a quarterback, they're going to be trying to get him and pay him that $60 million contract that he wants. And one of those teams could be the Giants, which we'll talk about a little later. But for right now, this is what the Raiders got. Now, I don't think Gardner Minshew is going to start every single game. I do think at some point we could see AidanO'Connell. But I do think for right now, I think Minshew is the better option. And Minshew's got a pretty good supporting cast around him. I mean, both guys would. They got one of the best receivers in the NFL in Davante Adams, who I think is still kind of the best receiver in the NFL. Might not put up the numbers like he used to in Green Bay, but I still look at him as the best. If he was still playing with Aaron Rodgers, I would say he's still the best. But right now, that goes to Justin Jefferson at the moment. You got Davante Adams, you got Jacoby Myers. Trey Tucker's going into his second season. Brock Bowers. We'll see what the running game is like with no more Josh Jacobs. How Zamir White's going to be over the course of a full season. They brought in Alexander Madison. They got a lot of weapons on this team. So, whoever's the starter, they got playmakers around them. And we'll see how this team is, with Antonio Pierce as the head coach for a full season. The Raiders are, what did I say? I think I said like 7 or 8 wins this year. Something like that. But they really did respond last year when Antonio Pierce took over as the head coach. And over the course of a full season, let's see how it is. Now, they play with the Chiefs in their division. We'll see how the Chargers are with Harbaugh, although we also got to keep an eye on, Justin Herbert and, where he's at, because, it's possible he misses week 1. Actually, that's who the Raiders are going to be playing week 1, is the Chargers. So they could get off to a fast start if Herbert doesn't play. They could definitely win that game. That really increases their chance of winning against the Chargers if Herbert doesn't play. I mean, we saw what the Raiders did to the Chargers on that Thursday night last year. Now, I don't think that's going to happen with Harbaugh, but I just wanted to bring that up. But yeah, I really don't disagree with this decision. I think this was the right decision. And, this is not a knock on AidanO'Connell, but I think I even said it last year. I don't look at him as a franchise guy either. You go back to the Christmas game against the Chiefs. They didn't complete a pass after the first quarter. They really managed the game with him. Now, they ran the ball for over 140 yards, so, and most of it was towards the end of the game because Amir White had a couple of big runs. But they won that game playing really good defense. They had 2 scoring plays on defense. The Chiefs fumbled and the pick 6. That's really why they won that game. It wasn't because of the offense. Playing good defense, running the football. Managing the game. That's what AidanO'Connell was doing. 12 touchdown passes to 7 picks last year. He's got a big arm. I didn't think he was bad. It's just, I don't know. He is going into his second year, but I don't see it with him. I could be wrong, but I think Minshew being the starter, I think that was the right choice. And last year, Minshew had over 3,300 yards passing, 3,305 yards passing, 15 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. Like I said, did a really nice job filling in for Anthony Richardson. So, but I'm curious to see. I'm curious to know what made them make that decision, because they said it wasn't from this past preseason game. I don't know. There's a lot more that we don't see. You got all the practices, and we'll see. Because I got the preseason stats right here. AidanO'Connell's got a better passer rating. Does have an interception. Minshew's thrown for more yards. So, I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that it didn't seem like a decision was coming, and then it ended up happening anyways. So, but I think it was the right decision. But I also did say, don't be surprised if AidanO'Connell ends up playing at some point during the year. I think if the Raiders get off to a really bad start, you'll probably see AidanO'Connell play. So, that it remains to be seen, but at least for the moment, we know that Gardner Minshew is going to be the starter. So let me know what you guys think, though, about that. How do you feel about it? Do you think AidanO'Connell deserves to be the starter over him? Let me know in the comments. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, we did qualify for Super Chat. So if you want to help out the show, click the $ in the chat menu. It highlights your comment. I acknowledge it during the live broadcast, and it just makes the show a lot better. And we appreciate you guys viewing the show each and every day. And if you don't want to do that, we always have the link that's at the bottom of the show segment, GSMCpodcast.net. But it's definitely easier to help out the show using the Super Chat icon because, with the link, it takes you to another site and makes you click off the video. So, again, we really appreciate you guys viewing the shows and supporting us every week with the content that we come out with. So, when we come back from our next break, to talk more quarterbacks, we're going to talk about now the Steelers. Offense is struggling a little bit, so we'll get into that. We'll talk about them when we come back from our next break. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the third part of the show, we are going to talk about the Steelers' offense, talk about the quarterbacks, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. The offense did struggle, these past two preseason games, so let's kind of get into it. So Russell Wilson did make his preseason debut, and he went 8 for 10 for 47 yards. So nothing spectacular. Numbers don't really jump out at you in his limited playing time. But what did jump out at us was the offensive line play. The offensive line struggled. They allowed 3 sacks and only 1 first down, with the offense averaging 1.6 yards per play. And Mike Tomlin highlighted the poor pass protection, especially from former first-round pick Broderick Jones, who gave up 2 sacks, and rookie right tackle Troy Fontenot was absent due to a knee injury. So, and that's a problem because the Steelers have really tried to, fix this offensive line. And early on in the preseason, going up against the Bills, and before that against the Texans, it doesn't look like the offensive line has really been playing up to, their standards. And Justin Fields really wasn't any better than Russ over the weekend. His stats from the game, he went 11 to 17 for 92 yards, and he also had 42 yards on the ground. At this point in Russell Wilson's career, it just doesn't seem like, he's going to get outside the pocket and move around like he used to. And that's what made him dangerous. Sorry, I had to say that. With Justin Fields, you at least get that. You get that mobility. And Justin Fields actually had that really nice play. I think it was to, who was it, Des Fitzpatrick? Where it looked like he was going to get sacked. Yeah, it was Des Fitzpatrick. He looked like he was going to get sacked. He got out of it, and he completed it for 19 yards to Fitzpatrick. And, yeah, that was a good play. And that's what Justin Fields can be capable of. But, I don't know. The offense just has not been great. And, like I said, the offensive line play was not good. They scored 3 points. Now, I didn't watch this game, fully. But the Steelers did have opportunities to put up points. They kind of went for it on some fourth downs, and they didn't get it. So I think if they don't do that, the score. I mean, the score ended up being 9-3. It could have been tied at some point, but then again, the Bills are not playing their starters, so. But yeah, it's just the offense has not been great, and that's something to worry about. And also, Jaylen Warren, one of their running backs, he's hurt. He's dealing with I believe, a hamstring injury. Yeah, so he suffered that during the game against the Bills. He's expected to miss multiple weeks. His availability now for the regular season opener against the Falcons is uncertain, so he might not even play week 1. And that's, that's a key guy on this offense. He played well last year. And especially towards the end of the year where you had him and Najee Harris, them running the football better. That was one of the reasons why the Steelers ended up making that final push to get to the playoffs last year, was because of their running game. And now if he's out, that puts more of a workload on Najee Harris. So, yeah, that hurts the offense. And now the whole, Brandon Ayuk stuff, now who knows at this point if he's going to get traded. Now it seems like he's going back to the 49ers because he was at practice. I did a segment on that. But, yeah, I mean, who's going to be that number 2 wide receiver that steps up in this offense? You got that. That's a problem. Now you got Jaylen Warren hurt. You don't know how long he's going to be out. The offensive line hasn't looked good. I mean, the Steelers' defense, we know, is going to show up. The Steelers' defense is the strength of the team. But they need to have an offense that can complement them to an extent. Because, Minkah Fitzpatrick and TJ Watt are not going to be scoring touchdowns constantly. We know that they can. They could take over. TJ Watt could take over a game. Minkah Fitzpatrick, we see what he's done since he's gone to Pittsburgh. Since he came over there from Miami in the trade. I mean, he's been great for them. But, the offense is what's got to score the points. The defense has got to get stops. Now, the defense can score as well, like I said, but the defense is there to get stops and give the offense the ball back. Create turnovers. But, yeah, it's these 2 games, Steelers' offense has not been great. And in terms of who should be the starter, I mean, I think Russ should be the starter. But similar to like what I said with Minshew and AidanO'Connell, I think his leash is going to be short. Steelers get off to a bad start, Justin Fields is coming in. And if all else fails, you go to Kyle Allen. Not really, but it's going to be interesting. Now, the thing I'll say is, it's not like the Steelers have a long-term commitment to these 2 guys. If they don't end up panning out, they're gone. But then that puts them in a tricky situation because who's going to play quarterback then? They have a good roster. Now, I think on the offensive side of the ball, there's definitely improvements that need to be made, especially with the receiving core. Because usually with the Steelers, their receiving core is usually pretty good. You got George Pickens, but, there's question marks outside of him. They did draft Roman Wilson from Michigan, but, we got to see how he is. They signed all these veteran guys. Receiving core is pretty weak. Outside of who I just said. You got Pat Freiermuth, who's a good tight end. But they need another playmaker or two on that offense. And they just don't have that. That's why it seemed like they were really pushing for this Ayuk deal to get done, and it's not going to happen, it seems. At least right now. But I think, is it time to panic and, freak out? No, with how the quarterbacks have played, because it's still the preseason. Still got one more week, and then we get to the start of the season. But I could definitely see Steelers fans being frustrated throughout the year with how the quarterbacks are playing. And part of it all starts up front. If you don't protect these guys, well, you're not going to have an offense. Because they're going to have no time to throw. And the running game is going to suffer too. So, look, we gave the Steelers credit when they went out and they signed Russ, and the Broncos are paying his contract. And then Justin Fields, they didn't give up that much to get him. But now these guys got to play well. Whoever's the starter. So, and it also doesn't help that, I'm going to say it again, they play in the toughest division in football. And that second half of the season, if the Steelers' offense struggles, and the offensive line struggles like it is in the preseason, and you don't have that figured out by the second half of the season when you're playing the Bengals twice, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Eagles, I think, the Browns. If you don't have it figured out by then, because the first half of the season is where they're going to get most of their wins. If they're going to want to get back to that, if Mike Tomlin's going to want to continue his winning ways. If you don't go into that second half with a decent record, and the offense has been up and down and the line hasn't been good, that second half of the season is going to be brutal. I mean, already it's brutal just looking at it. But they got some work to do on that offense. And yeah, I don't know. Their first game is against the Falcons. We'll see. I mean, and then this was also Russell Wilson's first, game action of the season too. But and the calf injury, he's feeling great. So at least from what we're being told, he's healthy. But is he going to be effective? And at least for these first 2 weeks in the preseason, Steelers' offense just has not been great. So we'll see what happens, but let me know what you guys think, though, about the Steelers' quarterback situation. Who do you think should be the starter in Week 1? I still think you start Russ, and then, if he doesn't play well, then you go to Justin Fields, but someone's got to play well. And, if they don't play well, and like I said, if the offensive line is not going to protect them either, it's Steeler fans are not going to be happy. That's what I know, and I live with a Steelers fan. So, we're going to take our next break now, and then when we come back, we'll talk about Daniel Jones and the Giants. We will talk about them when we come back from our next break. So, with that being said, stick around. And we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are going to talk about Daniel Jones and the New York Giants. So, like I said at the start of the show, I was flipping back and forth between the Giant game, the Bears game, and the Yankee game. Now, I didn't really get to see Caleb Williams because every time I tried, they wouldn't have the ball. I did see the rushing touchdown. But I saw a whole lot of the Giants. And it was Daniel Jones' first game action. And, I wanted to see how he looked. So the Giants, they came out on offense. And on the very first play of the game, he almost throws an interception. If the guy on the Texans has to catch that ball. But that ended up not happening. And Derek Stingley. I forgot. I didn't know who it was, but Stingley ended up getting a pick anyways. But he almost throws a pick. Giants go 3 and out. Texans get the ball. And the Giants defense, gets a stop. The Texans went for it on fourth down. Again, it's preseason, so you're just, you're going to go for it. You see teams going for 2-point conversions, like the Eagles did the other night against the Patriots. So, the Giants defense makes a stop. Now, they're not in the best territory. They don't have the best field position. But, you're like, hey, Giants defense stopped the Texans. Look at that, no points. 2 plays. And Daniel Jones throws a pick 6. And it's not like the Texans made a great play. Daniel Jones is, it's a play action, doesn't get rid of the ball. He's about to get sacked, and it would have ended up being a safety. And he tries to throw it away, but he ends up throwing a pick 6. And that wasn't good. That was not good. And then on the next drive, the Giants are putting together a nice drive. Devin Singletary had a nice run. The Texans had a couple of, Texans had a penalty. The Giants had a penalty. Jones hit Neighbors for 14 yards. Malik Neighbors is the real deal. There's no questions about that. Malik Neighbors is the real deal. He had a couple of nice catches in this game. Jones took off with and ran for 12 yards. So the Giants were set up. They were, in Houston territory. And then Jones tried to complete a pass to Jalen Hyatt. And it was underthrown. And Derek Stingley picked him off for 2 picks now. And they still kept Jones in. And he completed a nice pass to Darius Slayton for 44 yards. They ended up getting a touchdown, and Devin Singletary scored. Final score ended up being 28-10. But you could say, well, he did that against the Texans' backups. But my thing is this. Let me just get this out of the way. Daniel Jones has not played a game since against the Raiders last year when he tore his ACL. What was that? Late October, whatever it was, October, November. So I'll give him that. This is his first game action in months. In almost a year. However, that pick 6 is inexcusable. If he ends up taking a safety there, so be it. But when you try to throw it away as you're falling down, and it ends up getting basically it's a walk-in touchdown, a pick 6. That's what's going to get you in trouble. And that was not good. And, the second pick, that ball's got to be up higher. That, Hyatt was, had Stingley beat. It's just it was underthrown, and he made a good play. Now, that was less egregious than the pick six, but still, it's, that's why you have a lot of people that don't believe in Daniel Jones. And that's why I fall into that category. And I've said it, I want Daniel Jones to do well. I want him to show me and show other Giant fans that he is the guy. The problem is, it's 2024. He should have proved it to us in his second year. This is now year 6. Year 6. And he's making plays like that. Now, they kept him in. The Giants' intention was that he was going to play. Starters were going to play like most of the first half. Now, it doesn't help that. Now you wonder what would have happened if Drew Lock was active for this game, because the Giants only have 2 active quarterbacks right now, between Daniel Jones and Tommy DeVito. And Tommy DeVito wasn't any better. I mean, he didn't throw 2 interceptions, but Tommy DeVito did not play well either. So you do wonder if Drew Lock does play, if Drew Lock was healthy for this game, do they yank Daniel Jones after the pick six? Do they yank him after the second interception? Does he even get a chance to have that touchdown drive? We don't know. But that was tough. That was a tough watch. And when I was watching the game, as I am texting in my group chat, my sports group chat, that he almost threw a pick on the very first play. The pick six happens. I either just hit the send button or I'm about to hit it, the text. And he throws the pick six. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. It was just, I really could not, I just could not believe that happened. But it's just, I am going to see him play week 1. I apologize for the background noise. But I'm going to see him week 1 when they take on the Vikings. Could be a long afternoon. It's possible. But I also think that the Giants' defense is going to be good. But you can't have this. You can't have it. And you know what? A lot of people were saying, even the Giants broadcasters, Bob Papa, Carl Banks, and Phil Simms, the offensive line was playing well. The offensive line has played well in these couple games so far. Daniel Jones actually had time to throw. But he was making mistakes. See, people give him a pass at times because the offensive line has just been, it's been a problem for years for the Giants. But now, if it's not a problem, and you got time to throw, and you're still turning the ball over, well, he's the problem. The quarterback's the issue. So it's tough. It's tough. And look, it's one game. However you feel about Daniel Jones, it is one game. But that was not good. That was not good. And Brian Dable, just wanted to get into what he had to say on Jones' performance. He said that's what these games are for 2. some evaluation part of it, but obviously you have a plan going into it. It's a little bit different than, I would say, a regular season game where you're scheming and doing things like that. I wanted to make sure we had enough plays where we were throwing it down the field, which I was happy to see, because early on I'm like, oh yeah, here we go, the dump offs and all these quick passes. I wanted to see them push the ball down the field, and they tried, and they did. Jones connected with Slayton, but the Hyatt pass got intercepted. The pass to Hyatt got intercepted. It just, I want to see the Giants offense create big plays, and I feel like they do have some receivers to do that, because Darius Slayton's a deep ball guy, Hyatt, and of course Malik Neighbors. I don't want to see these quick passes over the middle and towards the sideline and these checkdowns. I want to see the Giants offense push the ball down the field. And if Daniel Jones has time to throw, they can do that. And I think they have the receivers to do it. But yeah, so Dable continues by saying, I wanted to make sure we had enough plays where we were throwing it down the field. Just said that. Giving opportunities to throw it down the field. Again, there were some good things, good to get him out there, and then a couple of things we'll learn from, and that's what these things are for. And Jones said, bad decision and a bad throw. I think in a situation like that, obviously you're being tackled in the end zone, so intentional grounding there is a safety. So just making sure you dirt throw it at his feet, so there's no chance of intentional grounding. Obviously can't take a sack there in the end zone. But he also said, I think overall got some things going in the second quarter and executed and moved the ball. I was happy with how we responded in the second quarter. And yeah, so he ended up finishing 11 of 18 for 138 yards and 2 interceptions. He said he feels good physically. He said felt really good and excited to be out there. Grateful for all the people who have helped me get to this point, all the doctors and trainers and the staff we have here who have helped me. It was fun to be out there. Didn't start perfect, like I said, but we got going and I feel good physically. And believe it or not, still gives them the best chance to win out of the quarterbacks they have on the roster. Now, I think I did say that, maybe Drew Lock, has an opportunity to maybe take the starting job away from him. You got Tommy DeVito there. Look, if the Giants are going throughout this season and you have all three quarterbacks playing, it's not a good sign. It's not a good sign. And yeah, Daniel Jones did not look great. Drew Lock and his limited playing time did not look great. Tommy DeVito, you could argue, he probably looked the best out of all three so far in these two games, even though he didn't play well against the Texans either. So, out of the three, Daniel Jones does give them the best chance. So, it is one game, but it was like it's not like he threw one interception and it wasn't like an awful performance, but it was probably like almost as worse as it can get with that pick six. If that pick six doesn't happen, if he just gets tackled in the end zone, okay, but the fact that pick six happened, that's not good. Like, that cannot happen. But they kept him in, and at least, if some people are going to say, well, they at least salvaged his performance by, them putting that touchdown drive together, but I just... we'll see what happens. But let me know what you guys think about Daniel Jones' performance from over the weekend. What were your takeaways from it? So when we come back from our final break of the show, we will talk about the Dallas Cowboys. We'll talk about Brandon Arbery's 66-yard field goal that he made in the preseason. We'll talk about that to end off the show for today. So for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the final part of the show, we are going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys kicker, Brandon Arbery, who kicked a 66-yard field goal. Kind of end off the show here. Yeah, probably didn't expect, with all the quarterback talk that we would get into talking about a kicker, but I thought we would just touch upon it just because it was just insane that this happened. And now I didn't see it live, because I was out on Saturday, so we were out watching all the UFC fights. And this game was on late. This was on, at least my time it was late. Game started at 10 p.m. my time. But it's just it stinks though, because this doesn't count because it's the preseason. But that doesn't mean he can't do it during the regular season. And it's not. And the crazy thing is, it's not like it was Justin Tucker's field goal from a few years ago, which set the all-time record. Because Justin Tucker's kick, if you remember, hit off the crossbar and bounced in, and the Ravens won the game. That was against the Lions. Dan Campbell's first season as the head coach. This one, this was straight through. There was no ricocheting off of anything, bouncing off of nothing. This was straight through. And I think this was right before the end of... This was right at the end of the first half, I believe. Let me just double check. And he also made a 54-yarder earlier in the game. Yeah, so this was right before the half. And yeah, he made it with plenty of leg. So he is, he's going to be a weapon for the Cowboys. And he was good last year, too. All I thought about was, his fantasy stock. In terms of kickers, though, he's going to be near the top. Could be somebody that ends up being the first kicker taken off the board. But I just thought that was unbelievable. And, talking about it with some coworkers, too, it's like, yesterday, talking about it, a 40-yarder, a 50-yarder, you make a 57-yard field goal. Wow, unbelievable. These guys are making it from 66. They're on the other side of the field. Now, I know on the kickoffs, back in the day, I love how I'm saying back in the day because of what the new kickoff rules. You have kickers on the kickoffs, kicking it through the uprights. I get it. So it really does make you wonder, can someone make a 70-yard field goal? 66. This is unbelievable. That's unbelievable. And Justin Tucker did it. He's got the all-time record, and as he should, because he is the greatest kicker of all time, arguably. But it's just that they're making it look easy, some of these guys. I go to the football field at my high school, and I'll try to kick it through the uprights. I'm lining up at the 10 or the 15-yard line. But these guys, it's unbelievable. And again, it really does make you wonder, can this record be beaten? Is there going to be a time where we got, kickers lining up at the 5, are they on their own 5-yard line kicking it? No, it's not going to happen. They need a bionic leg or something. I don't think it's going to get that crazy. Well, this is pretty crazy. A 66-yard field goal. And, who knows if CeeDee Lamb ends up, holding out and Dak Prescott, ends up leaving. He might be their best offensive player. I know how it feels when your kicker is your best offensive player. Yeah, it's not fun. No, but in all seriousness, though, like I said, the Cowboys got a weapon with Arbery here, and I wanted to actually look up his stats from last year because I think he was good last year too. But I don't know. I just thought this was something to talk about just because it was that's a pretty big deal making a 66-yard field goal. That's going to get a lot of people's attention. Yeah. So last year he went 36-38. So that's a 94.7 percentage. So that's pretty good. Not pretty good. That's very good. So, you expect that to continue going into this year. He's 29 years old. And this preseason, he's 85.7% with field goals. He's 100% on extra points. But yeah, like I said, that is going to get my attention. And he actually, he was with the, he was with the USFL also. So, see, and I brought this up on a previous show when I was talking about Jake Bates. I mean, that's what makes it great with what makes the UFL, well, now the UFL great, is it gives guys like, him, like Aubrey, like Jake Bates, it gives them an opportunity to, make an NFL team. And you've already seen that. There's been, several players getting signed to the NFL. That's one of the benefits of having this other league. It may not be the most exciting thing to watch, but, it gives these guys an opportunity to show off, and an NFL team could say, hey, I want that guy. And they got an opportunity to try to, make it big with the NFL. So there are benefits with the UFL. And I know I brought that up on a previous show. So, but yeah, we are now in week 3 of the preseason. But we also have the start of college football as well. We got several games on Saturday, so that's exciting. Got one more week of preseason, and then we're off and running. Got my drafts. I got my rookie dynasty draft this week, and then I got my 2 big drafts next week. I got my main one next Wednesday, and then the league that I run, which is with my family, that's next Friday. So a lot of fun stuff. My main league, I have the 5th pick. So, and having some conversations with my friends over the weekend, I thought I knew who I was taking, but the player that I thought I was going to take might not be on the board. And I might be getting somebody that I really didn't think I was going to have a chance to get. So that's going to be, I mean, there's still time, so it could still end up being, I get who I was thinking anyways. But, some interesting things that I learned over the weekend that maybe I have to recalibrate and think differently. But we'll see. And then with the family league, we didn't make the order yet. So what I'm doing is we had, who won the toilet bowl, they get the first pick. So my cousin's getting the first pick, and then everybody else, I'm just going to randomize the order. So, and we're going to do that once we're there, where we're drafting. So I don't know what the order is until the day of, but it's exciting. And then when you got the spread pool as well, really looking forward to that. Even though it's going to aggravate me, but that's part of it. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it though for me today. Again, let me know in the comments about all the stuff that we talked about. If there's anything else that I didn't cover today. Look, we're rounding the corner here, and I cannot wait for that first football Sunday. Now I will be, at MetLife Stadium, but I just want it to be back already. But we're getting there, especially with how the Yankees lost last night. It's just, I'm like, can we get to football? But no, I got to stick with them. That's my team. But it's just, they've been frustrating. So, yeah, appreciate you guys tuning in today. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well on the network. We really appreciate that. And yeah, so as always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn ain't